mistreat my wife and daughter. Makes love without a smile. I believe you must be the devil's daughter. You're just 19 years old. So mean and evil, just 19 years old. I would have made you, baby. I'm sure they broke the mold. She's so mean and evil, so mean and evil. She's so mean and evil. But you give eyesight to the blind.
That was Canadian artist Paul James, who once toured with the Mink DeVille band back in, I think it was 1982 or something like that. Sounds a bit like the early Willie DeVille, Paul James. Mean and Evil. That wasn't the one I was going to play, so that leaves me room to play the one I was going to play a little later on. It's all right. It's all about the music. It's 12:30, so it's time, as I said, to introduce my guest, the very smiley Martin Chambers. Nice to have you back again.
Hello.
He has got a lot more to say than that. So I told the listeners that we're going to be hearing something from your new narrative. Is that what you've planned? Or have you changed your mind?
Well, I do have a habit of changing my mind, but yes, I have something here from a book I'm working on at the moment.
Right, okay. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, this is one, it's a book called Nullarbor, and I've been writing it for a couple of years, and it's good, but it's not good enough yet, and basically there's not enough happens, like there's not enough action, so it's on a bit of a back burner at the moment. So I'll read a couple of excerpts out of that. I have another book that's with the editor at the moment, and I wanted to mention the editor word because the first thing I'm going to read is actually from somebody else. Okay. And my editor, who is a fully paid up member of the Grammar Police, would like to hear this one, I think. She's not listening, but hopefully.
Nobody listens.
I think all writers live in fear of the Grammar Police.
Do they?
Yes.
Dedicated to her.
Because we're
no names being mentioned, I notice.
No. Writers are an anarchic lot. This is out of a book. This is actually published in 1951. It's called Australian Short Stories.
It's a very small book, and it's a tiny little hardcover.
It's got tiny writing.
It's like a New Testament. You know, the New Testaments they used to give you at Presbyterian churches.
I was sitting out the front reading before. It was edited by Murdoch and Drake Brockman, and it's actually got one of Peter Cowan's stories in it. So I'm from the Peter Cowan Writers Centre, which is just over there. And Peter Cowan's short stories have just been republished in a book that's done by the Peter Cowan's Writers Centre. So if people are interested in getting some short stories, head over to the Writers Centre, and it's $28 for a copy. Fantastic book. But this is a short story, not actually by Peter Cowan. This is by Herman Gill, who's someone I've never even heard of. And it's like I say, published in 1951. So as writers, we're always thinking of, I've just invented something new. It's called Suburban Souvenir, and I'll try and read it. He was born in 1895. Suburban Souvenir. Walter said, yes, he couldn't quite believe it, and he would have shook his head sadly, and he looked for a place to put his cigarette ash, because Mrs. Harcourt is rather particular about cigarette ash going on her carpet, but she couldn't see an ashtray anywhere, and he surreptitiously knocked it to the floor, and old Mrs. Ferguson said yes, it did, because he was a very sensitive man. Because as old Mrs. Ferguson told Walter, it was the principle of the thing that worried him. He didn't care about the money or anything like that, and it was the thought that people he trusted could turn out in that way that he said it almost broke his faith in human nature. And then Mrs. Harcourt struck a chord on the piano, and Harcourt started to sing, "When you are a friend, happy friend of mine, and all your skies are blue." And Harcourt worked on through his song to the bit about where both of us and the long, lone road must let go, be there, let me be there, there be with you. Old Mrs. Ferguson said she had such a sweet nature, and even that treatment couldn't altogether break his faith in fellow man. And then Mrs. Harcourt struck a chord on the piano, and Harcourt leapt out into the night that covers me, black as the pit, from pole to pole with a fair amount of gusto. So I think I'll stop there.
Was it written with no commas in it?
There's no punctuation. Each paragraph is a sentence, and there is no punctuation.
Wow.
And it runs on from his thoughts to the action to the lyrics of the song.
Right.
It's just absolutely wonderful.
Wow.
And it's written, I don't know when it was written, but this was published in 1951.
Yeah. Well, you read it.
Grammar
you did
police
well.
take note.
Yes.
And it's very hard to read.
Yes, I can see that. All right, so we're getting on to your latest
Now I
narrative.
get on to something I've written.
You've been quite prolific by the sound of it.
Yeah, maybe.
For someone who comes up with a lot of excuses not to write.
Well, yeah. It's very easy to find excuses, like reading on the radio. This is the very start of the book I was telling about, Nullarbor, which is thing. So his character Ravi, who is an Indian student at university here. The first time I saw the Nullarbor, I couldn't really see it. We were standing on the tray of Jack's ute, looking out at the view, and the actual Nullarbor was impossibly far away. We were on the way to the farm, and he had pulled over on a rise so he could show his country to me. It was early winter, and the land was rolling green with distant hazy hills that reminded me of dreams, the sort of landscape that begs you to come further, to run to the far horizon to see what is beyond. Of course, I was homesick, and I told him that it reminded me of India, the view at Netterhat. He laughed at that and told me that what we were looking at was the wheat belt, a place unlike anywhere else. It was a vast region that grew half of Australia's wheat, and most of that wheat was exported to feed the world. Beyond the wheat belt was dry scrubland, and beyond that the desert where they mined for gold, and beyond that was the Nullarbor, where there was not even the parts per million that made the desert something. Nothing out there, he said. So that's the start of that one. And so this is a second bit from that, and this is later on. He's actually out on the Nullarbor, and he's driving his car. And I've just called this a short story, so this is drifting. At Border Village he refuelled, and his was the only car. Inside, a girl stood alone at the cash register. She was pale-skinned with red hair and a soft Irish accent, and she had the look of someone who longed for conversation. Raja paid for the fuel and ordered a toasted sandwich, and then went to the washroom to splash water on his face. A patrol car was next to his when he came out. He watched one of the policemen take a long, slow look and then take note of his licence plate. When the second policeman had finished refuelling, the two of them came towards the building, and Raja went to hide in the toilets. He waited a long time, long enough, and then some more, and then a bit longer. When he came out, the patrol car was gone. "What did the police want?" he asked the girl. "Is your car stolen?" she asked by way of answer. But before Raja could panic, she laughed. "They are only slightly less trapped than me. They drive up to the border and then back, border and back, up and back all day. I go from here to the kitchen." A tourist bus drove in and parked, and soon there was a crowd in the building and ones and twos lounging around. Some stood alone at the edge of the car park, stretching their arms and legs. Raja sat by the window to wait for the girl to finish serving the tourists. He was in no hurry, and he didn't mind the crowd. After about 20 minutes she brought him his sandwich and a cup of tea. On the house, she said of the tea, that he hadn't ordered. He ate his sandwich slowly. He sipped the tea, which was surprisingly good. Slowly the crowd left, and when the bus drove off, the place was again deserted. The girl came and sat at the table as if they were old friends. "Good tea," he said. "Thanks," she said. "Want another?" She left to make it before he answered. When she came back, she said she had one for herself too, and she said, refugees. Was she telling him that the bus was a load of refugees? Breakout at the northern camp. They're looking for some refugees who stole a car. Personally, I think they'd be better off in the camp. Nothing out here. It took Raja a while to realise she was talking about the police and his question about what they had wanted. The police? Yeah, she kept talking. When I applied for the job, I thought, Border Village? Great, sounds like a place. There'd be something here, some outback life, some Aussies, a few houses and some small town culture. I couldn't believe it when I got here. Is this it? Is this all there is? You could always leave, Raja suggested. Which way are you going? She asked. Perth. OK, I'll show you the back way. They'll be waiting for you up the main road. She didn't seem to care if he was a refugee or not, but he sensed that it might be a little bit more exciting for her if he was. In the car she talked almost non-stop, and she made Raja laugh with all the things she said, and Raja had to think hard to remember the last time he had laughed. At Balladonia she directed him to turn left, and he followed the gravel road south until sunset. They camped for the night, and she lay next to him and said, "Not much talent out there," and they kissed. For a moment it was good, and then Raja turned away. "What's the matter?" All he could say was, "Someone else." "Oh," she said, and then lay with her arms around him. "Just my luck." "Yeah," he sighed, "and mine too." Raja lay still. Her arms were warm and alive around him, and if he had moved, he would have begun, and then never stopped, to cry. Only by keeping still could he hold back the flood. He wanted her to hold him forever, and he would close his eyes and pretend it was someone else. "We could do it anyway," she said. "No one here to know. No strings." And Raja began to cry, softly, and she continued to hug him, and soon they slept. In the morning they drove, and the next night they rented a hotel room, and they made love sadly with the starlight peeking softly through the curtains. When they arrived in Perth, she kissed him goodbye and got out at the train station.
I'll be back with more from Martin in just a moment.
Did you know 3 out of 5 people sing in the shower? The most popular genre is country. Well, shower singers, it's time to shine. Sing for Good is Australia's biggest community singing project. Families, workplaces, sports teams, choirs, everyone is welcome to submit a video and challenge friends. There are heaps of categories, plus cash prizes for schools. Donations support people in need through Creativity Australia's With One Voice program. Do good, feel good. Register now at singforgood.org.
I'm not running, I'm just walking. I'm just whispering, but I ain't talking. Don't dance fast like the other guys, because I'm stuck on a slow jive. Slow jive, baby, that's how I'm feeling. No speed, but a lot of feeling. Please don't ask me why, because I'm stuck on a slow jive, yeah. I'm not running, I'm just walking. I'm just whispering, but I ain't talking. Don't dance fast like the other guys, because I'm stuck on slow jive. Slow jive, baby, that's how I'm feeling. No speed, but a lot of feeling. Please forgive me if I get high, because I'm stuck on slow jive.
That was Canadian artist Paul James and Slow Jive. We're slow jiving into Martin's next piece, which is...
Well, I'll do some poetry now.
Okay.
This one,
yours?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
This is my poetry. Some of it's better than others, but this one has a good name. I like the name of this poem. It's called "You Would Not Know It, but Onomatopoeia, when spilled to the floor by a drunken reveller returning home late, crunches underfoot."
Well, I've heard some long titles in my time, but that's up there with them.
I know it was you, home drunk, full of simile, of pig in pen, of bull in china shop, of breaking wave, of tsunami, that in your mind a tiptoe, silent, mouse, and maybe you would have been, but actions speaking, suspicions sneaking, got away with it. But in your baggage, ghosts crowd around, your shadow, solid in the night, bumps pots, full jars fall from shelves high, spill contents like discontent, and words not said mean more than the sound they make, so that now the sound of snoring is the sound of peace. I never know whether that's quite an angry poem or not. And another little poem, this called Under the Weather, and this is inspired by my uncle, who is in care now, and I'm looking after him, so just thinking about my relationship with him over the years. It's called Under the Weather. In my youth, you were already too old to be of interest to us, the quirky uncle who drank too much at Christmas and departed under the weather in the back seat of a taxi, or more often didn't turn up at all. We were told something he ate at the office party. Later, I found out there was no office, no party. You were alone at home and under the weather. It is a common storm that blows ill wind and injures many, leaving no bleeding wounds to dress with sympathy, although at the worst of it we might helicopter in and pull you from the rooftop, and then leave you to heal with your own good time, keep our distance until you pull out of it, and you, alone at home with the damage that remains under the weather. I think last week was Mental Health Week. So. When I was here once before, you actually accused me of being very sad.
And yet, you know, it's really strange because, as I said earlier, you've got the smiliest face of anyone I know.
In my poem. So this one's...
Are you warning me now? Are you getting me ready, are you?
Maybe it'll lighten up a bit later on. It looks too cold for swimming today, but if not now, when? I wait. For what? I stand on the rocks and watch the birds, a gull who cries lonely and swoops to peck at a flaw in the sea silk. That, I follow him in. The sea has no depth, just a fabric skin above and the echoed hollow below where fish fly. Kelp in suspended animation, balloons of jellyfish milky clear, down to the floor where shells have their tent camp, with crabs and snails, dig further down to leave spirals in the muddy ooze. Bubbles escape, float up and carry with them particles that go to burst the sky, and again I hear the gull cry out, peck a blemish, make it pure again. To heal. I know no thing or thought or life can pass between one world and the next, but still I fly ideas to the sky, attach particles of hope to them that are soon gone up beyond, and I wait for what? There is no sign from you, nothing that might mean you saw or understood. I cry lonely and peck at the beach around me. Later, at our white painted farmhouse that is now a shell on the green and muddy fields that used to be our home, I scratch the earth, plough small spirals to raise beans and potatoes, or tomatoes in summer. In the season I throw seeds to the soil, to the chickens. They scratch the ground around them, looking for something I cannot see. Okay, so on the bird theme, there was chickens in that one. We've got birds now. This one's called Birds Are Stupid. I've read this one before, actually, last time I was here. So. Birds are stupid. In the park opposite my house, raucous white corellas found noisy amusement on the new tin roof of the pavilion. They pulled each nail so that the sea breeze later the sheets might fly as the shiny feathers from the moult of some sick monster. As an aside, 2 weeks ago I went to the opening of the pavilion. The architect made a speech about how he took inspiration from nature, how he designed to the shape and form of birds and trees. Sick monster might have been the words one neighbour used to describe the building, or the architect, come to think of it. But today the building was more popular, although I don't think it was for art or style that these birds were systematic. As each one pulled a nail, I could read its thoughts. No food this time, but I'll find it yet, and then it would fix me with a malevolent glare. They would have pulled the lot had not the curator arrived, and with the athletic starting gun thus startled, the corellas flew to the laughing west. Birds are so stupid, he said to me. Yesterday a fleet of red-tailed blacks landed in the red gums and dropped a rain of nuts so that on the oval school sport was abandoned until I could rake the field. They only eat one thing, you know, and now they are endangered. And then he repeated, birds are just so stupid. On the 6 o'clock news tonight, that time when the world stops and events to list them, I was thinking of the curator and his birds are just so stupid, for there was an article about a wind farm ban, how endangered birds might fly into the great white arc of blades and die in the field below, and I was imagining the feathery litter and how to rake it clean, that perhaps survival of the fittest might be of the more intelligent, and I would have thought some more of that, of survival and intelligence, of humans and of birds. But the newsreader told me electricity prices were to rise by 10%. Actually, I think I'll do this one next. This is called This Poem Visits Perth. This poem wandered around the city unnoticed, collecting words and images, thoughts and snippets like Florsham, Qantas, Glidden Arcade, fleshing itself out as an alien from another galaxy might collect things familiar to us and hang them around itself so that we might be able to see it. Carillion, Plaza, Commonwealth, Alexander. This poem, still naked under its cloak of words, added litigation overheard whilst waiting at traffic lights on the corner of St George's Terrace and Barrack, Sandvik from the side of a van, and Templemen from the back of a bus. Full-bodied words these, full of image and overtone, of flavour that, like red wine, improves with contemplation. This poem left out unsightly words, but some, like dog turd and vagrant, it kept, just in case. It rejected any words painted in red. Further along and moving towards the big end of town, this poem added, like jewels, the staccato of TLAs that ring to the tune of rattle of train, BHP, NAB, ANZ, BHP, NAB, ANZ, and then still collecting south towards the river, initials shorter and longer, and the tune became a song with stanzas like the alighting of a train at an underground station. BP, Woodside, KPMG, Esplanade. This poem noticed the percussion of people and shoes. Up the steps of New Station with the hurry of speaking, gathered as many as it could remember, but there were just too many, and they came so quick and fast and fell away as quickly as they came, so that soon all that was left at the end was the realisation that this poem was still unseen, that no cloak of beautiful words would reflect like the mirrored courts of a high-rise, and that all the people would see was themselves. This poem wandered down to the river and sat on a grassy bank, took all its wonderful words and laid them out like a picnic in the sun, and wondered, would it be any better with the words in some other order?
Wonderful. That was wonderful, Martin. It's interesting because this weekend at the Peter Cowan Writers Centre, you probably know about it, is the Mil Murray Writers Special Day Retreat. And Susan Sontag said this as a prelude to this advertisement that I'm going to tell you about now, about this retreat. Love language, agonise over every sentence, pay attention to the world. That's exactly what you did in that poem. Fantastic. I loved it. Look, this retreat, known as Mil Murray, is an exciting opportunity for any emerging and established writers to get together with the support of an in-house experienced facilitator or writer. And that happens to be Dr. Susan Medaglia. She was in here several weeks ago. Fabulous. Are you going to this by any chance?
No, I'm not.
You're not.
I'm
Okay.
doing a sporting event.
You can't do everything. Look, if you want more information about this, the cost and so forth, it'll all be found on the Peter Cowan website, which is pcwc.org.au, and it'll be held at this beautiful campus by the lake at the the Edith Cowan House. What have you got for us to finish up with, Martin?
Oh, yeah. Lots. that retreat's really good. It used to be residential, so this is the first year they're doing it here
Yes.
on campus, so
And
that
it's
you
from
can just
9:30
come.
to 4:30
Yeah.
each day, Saturday and
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah. I think I've read this one before. This one's called Clutter, and this my mate Jeffrey. He's a real person who it becomes obvious. Clutter. My mate Jeffrey runs performance workshops for businessmen. Achieve your potential leadership. Shit like that. He says, your desktop is the window to your soul. On my desktop, the in-tray overflows with bills, tax receipts, junk mail leaflets of interest. Next to it, a stack of reused A4 paper, handwritten notes from the radio, or half poems, scribbles, things I am working on, or printouts of some joke that seemed funny at the time. Books, old and new, a thesaurus, yesterday's newspaper, some magazines unread, a cup of pens, 6 pencils, paper clips. Who uses those these days? An apple core withered, that must have been some time ago. It dehydrates atop the photo of a gorilla in Rwanda, big-eyed and coffee-stained from the ring of my cup. There's a lot of dust, notebooks, elastic bands, a box of stamps, old screws and a piece of wood. Where did that come from? My other desk, the one inside, it has your picture, not much else. Your voice, your smile, a movie as you turn and flick your hair in answer to some question about nothing. Your eyes, your laugh, your tears. Each evening at close I sweep to clean the desk and fill to overfull the rubbish bin beside. Yet each morning, there you are again, your picture on my desk.
He's fossicking through his huge catalogue here.
It's terrible the way you just sit there silently.
Taking it all
the
in.
Audience, there's no feedback on radio, is there?
Well, we can make that happen, and I should be making that
don't
happen.
you have canned
Canned laughter?
applause or something?
Yes, there you
Not
go.
laughter, that wasn't very funny.
All right, we have time for one more, so leave us with a cheerful smile on our face, will you please? No, I'm kidding. You read what you want. Oh, tough.
I might have to change the end of this one as I go along.
Poetic license.
Well, I heard. I think I read this one before too. But I heard it was on Radio National. It was a radio station that may or may not exist in competition to this one. They had a thing about silence, which I thought was a very interesting topic to talk about on the radio.
Yes. Would have been interesting.
And this poem came out of that. It's called The Song of the Redwood. Some might say the redwood tree is silent for its 1,000-year youth, or that it has seen so much that there is no more to say. But listen, and you will hear, early, the soft sigh of seed fallen on snow, grains of soil murmuring as roots feel their way, or the unfolded paper rustling of new bright leaves. In storms, the whispering sway of wind as it curves by the giant, and if two trees touch, you will hear the tip-tap wooden caress of nearby limbs. After a millennia it has more to say and could go on singing the ballad of the forest from one old tree's ancient point of view. And so it is that true silence comes with the sharp fall of axe, or there, hiding between the creak and cry of timbermen, silence in the gaps left by the buzz of saws and the rattle of trucks. So fatal is this space between noise that workers hide their fear, sheltering behind an empty wall of loud radio FM, bravely playing pop songs of the moment.
The redwoods, they're so majestic. I had the pleasure of living in a redwood forest in Mill Valley, which is just north of the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. And the kitchen was built around a redwood tree. And we hung our pots and pans on the redwood tree. And outside, if you looked up, all you could see is like a pinpoint up above because the trees are so tall all around. It was absolutely stunning. And the smell, year round, in the summertime, in the wintertime, it was absolutely fantastic.
And it's so easy to forget the majesty of a tree. Last weekend, my daughter's actually walking the Bibman track end to end. So we went down to Donnelly River and walked through some of the Karri forest with them.
Oh, lovely.
Last weekend.
Oh, lovely.
Just sort of get out into that forest and within half an hour, just these trees just right by the trail.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. It's breathtaking. Lovely to see you, Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come back again.
I will.
Martin was sent over from the Peter Cowan Writers Centre, and as I said, all the information for that Mill Murray Writers Special Day retreat this weekend can be found on pcwc.org.au. It's exactly 1 o'clock. This is the afternoon show. I'm Robin McClure-Holmes, and this is Community Radio 89.7.
Joe Cool was a real head cat, but Tom was catching up and Joe was getting fat. The last time I saw him I was checking out suits. Joe Cool was buying jeans and high-heeled boots. He said, hey man, I can hardly move, but what's more important is the way I groove. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. Joe Cool, that fast cat is dead. Joe Cool crossed the street and he started to talk. He said, man, these boots give a funky walk. I said, yeah, man, that's a mighty fine suede, but when it really counts, can you get out of the way? Cause those heels are too high, those pants are too tight, and there's a V8 Ford coming out